The blizzard hit Chicago without warning, and 16-year-old Darius Johnson had exactly 25 minutes to earn his final $15 for his mom's medicine. That's when he saw her through the swirling snow. An elderly woman collapsed on the sidewalk, shivering violently in the brutal cold. Her expensive coat was torn, her knee grotesquely swollen, her eyes unfocused with confusion. Dozens of people hurried past through the storm, heads down against the wind. Nobody stopped. Darius had one choice: deliver his final order and get that crucial tip, or help a dying stranger and lose everything. He didn't think twice. "Ma'am, you're going to freeze out here." He gently helped her onto his bike. "I'm taking you somewhere warm." As he pedaled through the raging blizzard with this confused woman on his handlebars, Darius had no idea she would connect him with one of America's most powerful billionaires, or that this single act of kindness would transform his entire future. But to understand why what happened next was so heartbreaking, you need to know what this $15 tip meant to Darius. Every morning at 5:30 a.m., while his classmates slept in warm beds, Darius Johnson woke up to the sound of his mother coughing. Not just any cough, the deep chest-rattling kind that made him wince every time. Maria Johnson worked double shifts as a hospital janitor, scrubbing floors and emptying trash cans for 12 hours straight. But 3 days ago, her bronchitis got so bad she couldn't even stand without gasping for air. 3 days without pay, 3 days of watching his mom struggle to breathe. "Mijo," she whispered that morning, her voice barely audible between coughing fits. "I'll be fine. I just need rest." But Darius knew better. He'd researched her symptoms online at the library. Without proper medicine, bronchitis could turn into pneumonia, and pneumonia could kill. The prescription cough syrup cost exactly $15. They had $12.50. That's why, after school, Darius strapped on his helmet and grabbed his delivery bag. His bicycle was a 10-year-old Walmart special with a chain that slipped and brakes that squealed. The delivery app only paid $6 to $8 per order, but tips could change everything. 8 deliveries down, $12.50 earned, 1 delivery left. As he pedaled through Chicago's South Side, Darius felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on his 16-year-old shoulders. Other kids his age worried about video games and dating. He worried about keeping the lights on. Last month, Commonwealth Edison had cut their electricity. For 2 weeks, Darius did his homework by candlelight while his mom worked extra shifts to pay the reconnection fee. He never complained. Complaining wouldn't solve anything. Instead, he found solutions. When their neighbor Mrs. Peterson couldn't afford groceries, Darius shared his school lunch. When the homeless veteran outside his school looked hungry, Darius bought him a sandwich with tip money. When the community center needed volunteers for their after-school program, Darius showed up every Tuesday and Thursday. "Why do you help everyone else when we barely have enough?" Maria had asked him once. "Because that's what you taught me, Mom. We take care of each other." Now, gripping his handlebars as snow began to swirl, Darius counted the crumpled bills in his pocket for the 10th time. $12.50. Always $12.50, no matter how many times he counted. His phone buzzed with the delivery notification that made his heart race. "Premium sushi order to River North. Customer requests careful handling. $15 tip guaranteed upon delivery." $15. Exactly what they needed. Darius had been delivering food for 8 months, ever since his mom's hours got cut at the hospital. He knew every shortcut, every building, every doorman in his delivery zone. But River North was different. Tall glass towers filled with people who spent more on lunch than his family spent on groceries. He didn't belong there, but their money was just as green. The restaurant handed him an expensive-looking bag. The sushi inside probably cost more than his mom made in a day. Darius secured it carefully in his insulated bag and checked his phone. 9:35 p.m. 25 minutes until the pharmacy closed. 25 minutes to save his mom. The ride to River North usually took 15 minutes, but the snow was getting heavier. Darius pedaled harder, his breath forming clouds in the freezing air. His hands were numb despite his torn gloves, the only winter gear he owned. But as he turned onto North Michigan Avenue, something made him slow down. Through the swirling snow, he could see her. An elderly white woman sat crumpled against a storefront, her body shaking uncontrollably. Her coat looked expensive, Real wool, not the synthetic stuff from discount stores, but it was torn and dirty like she'd been outside for hours. Her left knee was swollen to twice its normal size, and her face was pale with that grayish tint that meant hypothermia was setting in. Darius had seen that look before. During his mom's shifts at the hospital, he sometimes waited in the emergency room. He'd watched paramedics bring in homeless people who'd been found too late. This woman was dying. Other people hurried past, hunched against the storm. A businessman in an expensive overcoat stepped around her without even looking down. A young couple crossed to the other side of the street. Nobody stopped. Nobody cared. Darius checked his phone again. 9:37 p.m. The delivery customer was already texting. "Where are you? The food is getting cold. 23 minutes left. If he stopped now, he'd lose the delivery, lose the tip, lose his mom's medicine. But if he didn't stop, this woman would die alone on a frozen sidewalk." His delivery app started ringing. The customer was calling, probably angry about the delay. Darius looked at the woman, then at his phone, then back at the woman. She tried to stand, fell back down with a cry of pain, and her eyes rolled back. She was losing consciousness. That's when Darius made the choice that would change everything. 9:35 p.m., 25 minutes until the pharmacy closed. That's when everything changed. The blizzard wasn't just snow anymore. It was a wall of white fury slamming into Chicago. Wind howled between skyscrapers, turning every snowflake into a frozen needle. The temperature had dropped to 15 degrees and was falling. Darius's phone showed the delivery address. 401 North Michigan Avenue, apartment 2B. A luxury high-rise with a marble lobby and doorman. The kind of place where monthly rent exceeded what his family saw in 6 months. The order details made his eyes widen. Premium omakase sushi platter, $180, handle with care, ring buzzer 2B. Customer note, $15 tip guaranteed for prompt delivery. $15, the exact amount on his mom's prescription. But approaching the gleaming tower, pedaling hard against wind, he saw something that made his stomach drop. The elderly woman huddled against the building's glass facade was worse than he'd first thought. Much worse. Her expensive wool coat was torn along the shoulder. Mud stained the cream fabric, one sleeve hanging oddly. Gray hair, probably styled that morning, now hung in wet strands across her face. But her knee made Darius suck in a sharp breath. Her left leg bent unnaturally, knee swollen so badly it split her pants seam. Dark bruises spread across exposed skin like spilled ink. She'd fallen hard, multiple times. "Jonathan," she mumbled through blue lips, voice barely audible over wind. "Where's Jonathan? I need to go home." "The meeting." Her eyes darted back and forth, seeing things that weren't there. Classic hypothermia-induced confusion. Darius had learned about it when his mom treated frostbite cases. People streamed past on sidewalks, but the storm had turned everyone into ghosts. Heads down, collars up, moving fast. A businessman in a $1,000 coat stepped over her outstretched leg without glancing down. A young woman walking her dog crossed to the other side. "Crazy homeless lady," someone muttered, hurrying past. Darius's phone buzzed angrily. Text from customer. "Where are you? I'm starving and food better still be hot." 9:37 p.m., 23 minutes. His delivery app started ringing. The customer was calling, probably furious about the delay. Each ring felt like a countdown timer to disaster. If he answered, he'd have to explain why he was late. If he didn't, they might cancel entirely. No delivery meant no tip. No tip meant no medicine. The woman tried pushing herself up, using the glass wall. Her arm shook with effort, and she collapsed back with a whimper that cut through the wind. "Cold," she whispered. "So cold. Jonathan said he'd pick me up." Her lips were turning from blue to gray. Darius had seen that color during his mom's overnight shifts. It meant organs starting to shut down. This woman had maybe 30 minutes before hypothermia killed her. His phone rang again. This time, the delivery app itself, probably an automated system asking about delay. Darius stared at the screen, then at the woman, then back at the screen. Inside the luxury building, someone was waiting for expensive sushi, getting angrier about the delay. They were probably warm, probably safe, probably had no idea what $15 meant to families like his. Out here, a human being was dying alone. The woman's eyes found him through snow. For one moment, they focused with crystal clarity. "Help," she whispered. Just one word, carrying absolute desperation. That's when Darius realized something that made his chest tighten. He recognized that look. Not her face. He'd never seen this woman before. But that expression of helpless terror, of watching your world collapse while everyone looked away. It was the same look his mom wore 3 days ago when she couldn't afford missing work but couldn't breathe well enough to stand. The same look she'd tried hiding this morning when counting their money and realizing they were still $3 short. His phone buzzed with another angry text. "Cancel this order if you're not coming." 9:39 p.m., 21 minutes until the pharmacy closed. The woman tried standing again, using the building for support. This time, she made it halfway up before her injured leg buckled. She would have hit concrete face first if Darius hadn't lunged forward to catch her. Her weight surprised him. She was heavier than she looked, and the impact nearly sent them both tumbling. But he managed to steady her against the building. "Ma'am, you can't walk on that leg," he said, supporting her weight. "You need medical attention." "Just need to get home," she mumbled. "Jonathan's waiting. Important meeting tomorrow." Darius looked at his phone one last time, then at the woman shivering in his arms. The choice wasn't really a choice at all. What Darius did next would cost him everything he'd earned that night. But he didn't hesitate for even a second. He threw his bike down on the sidewalk and dropped to his knees beside the woman. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" His voice cut through the howling wind. "My name is Darius. You're going to be okay." The woman's eyes struggled to focus on his face. "Jonathan?" she whispered hopefully. "Did Jonathan send you? I'm here to help." Darius pulled off his only winter jacket, a thin thrift store find that barely kept him warm, and wrapped it around her trembling shoulders. "What's your name?" "Eleanor," she managed between chattering teeth. I was walking, got lost." His phone exploded with notifications. Angry calls from the customer, automated warnings from the delivery app, text messages getting nastier by the minute. "You're fired if you don't deliver this now." Darius turned his phone face down in the snow. "Eleanor, I need to check if you're hurt." His hands moved quickly but gently, the way he'd watched his mom examine patients. "Can you move your fingers for me?" She tried. Her right hand responded weakly. Her left arm hung limp. Her pulse was rapid and thready under his fingertips. Her skin felt like ice, but underneath was the burning heat of fever, hypothermia and infection, a deadly combination. "Eleanor, where do you live? Do you have family nearby?" "Home," she mumbled, her words slurring. "I need to go home. Jonathan will worry." The knee injury was worse up close. The swelling stretched her skin tight, and dark fluid seeped through the torn fabric of her pants. She'd been here for hours, maybe longer. Darius pulled out his phone and dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? I need an ambulance at 401 North Michigan Avenue. Elderly woman, severe hypothermia, possible broken bones. Eleanor's hand suddenly gripped his wrist with surprising strength. "No hospitals," she whispered urgently. "Please, just want to go home." The operator's voice crackled through the phone. "Sir, due to the blizzard, emergency response times are currently 45 minutes to an hour. Can the patient wait?" Darius looked at Eleanor's gray lips, her unfocused eyes, the way her breathing had become shallow and irregular. 45 minutes? She'd be dead at 20. "Never mind," he told the operator, and hung up. Eleanor was trying to stand again, using the building's glass wall for support. Her legs buckled immediately, and she would have hit the concrete if Darius hadn't caught her. "Whoa, easy. You're not walking anywhere on that knee." "Need to get home," she insisted, but her voice was getting weaker. "Meeting tomorrow. Important papers." That's when Darius made a decision that defied every logical thought in his head. "Okay, Eleanor, I'm taking you home. But first, we're going somewhere warm." He helped her toward his bicycle. She looked at the beat-up bike with confusion. "I know it's not fancy, but it's what we've got." Darius positioned the bike carefully. "You're going to sit right here on the crossbar. I'll pedal standing up. Just hold on tight, okay?" Getting Eleanor onto the bike took precious minutes. Her injured leg couldn't bear any weight, and she kept slipping into unconsciousness. But finally, she was seated with Darius's jacket wrapped around her and his delivery bag serving as a makeshift backrest. Where are we going? She asked as he began to pedal. My house. My mom's a hospital worker. She'll know what to do. The ride through the blizzard was the longest 15 minutes of Darius's life. Snow whipped across his face, stinging his eyes and making it impossible to see more than a few feet ahead. Without his jacket, the cold cut through his thin work shirt like knives. His muscles screamed from pedaling standing up, fighting against the wind with Eleanor's extra weight. But the worst part was listening to her fade in and out of consciousness. Jonathan's picking me up at 7, she mumbled. Can't be late. Board meeting. You're safe, Darius kept saying, as much to convince himself as her. Almost there. Stay with me, Eleanor. Twice, she nearly slipped off the bike. Twice, Darius had to stop and readjust her position, precious time ticking away while the storm got worse. As they passed the pharmacy at 9:58 p.m., Darius saw the lights going out. The pharmacist was locking the door, heading to his warm car in the employee parking lot. The medicine his mom needed was right there, 50 feet away, disappearing behind locked glass. Darius pedaled harder. By the time they reached his building, a rundown complex on Chicago's South Side, Eleanor was barely conscious. Darius half-carried, half-dragged her up 2 flights of stairs, her injured leg dragging uselessly behind them. "Mom!" he called as he fumbled with his keys. "Mom, I need help!" The door opened to reveal Maria Johnson in her hospital scrubs, just home from her shift. Her eyes went wide when she saw Darius supporting an elderly white woman who looked like she'd been hit by a truck. "Mijo, what happened? Who is this?" "Found her in the storm. She's hypothermic, possibly broken bones, and definitely has a fever." The medical terminology flowed naturally. He'd picked up more than he realized during all those hours in hospital waiting rooms. Maria's maternal instincts kicked in immediately. "Bring her inside, quickly." Their tiny apartment had never felt smaller. The living room was barely large enough for their second-hand couch and a small TV. The kitchen was a narrow galley with outdated appliances, but it was warm, and right now, warmth meant everything. Maria helped Eleanor onto the couch while Darius grabbed every blanket they owned. "What's your name, sweetheart?" she asked in the gentle voice she used with scared patience. "Eleanor," came the whispered reply. "I got lost. So cold." "You're safe now. Darius, bring me the first aid kit and some hot water." For the next hour, Maria worked with the skill of someone who'd spent years caring for others. She cleaned Eleanor's wounds, stabilized her knee with makeshift splints made from cardboard and tape, and gradually brought her body temperature back to normal. Eleanor's fever broke around midnight. When she finally opened her eyes with full awareness, the first thing she saw was Darius sitting on the floor beside the couch, keeping watch. "You," she said, her voice stronger now. "You saved me." "My mom did most of the work," Darius said. "I just gave you a ride." Eleanor looked around the small apartment, at the flickering fluorescent light in the kitchen, the duct tape holding the couch arm together, the single space heater working overtime to keep them warm. Then she looked at Maria, still in her hospital scrubs, exhaustion clear on her face, but kindness shining in her eyes. "You gave up your bed for me," Eleanor realized, noticing the pillow and blanket on the floor where Darius had planned to sleep. "Couldn't leave you out there," Darius said simply. "That storm would have killed you." When Eleanor woke up the next morning, what she tried to offer Darius should have been impossible for a confused elderly woman to have. Sunlight streamed through the thin curtains, and for the first time in 12 hours, Eleanor Whitfield's eyes were completely clear and focused. She sat up slowly on the couch, testing her body. The fever was gone. Her knee still throbbed, but the professional bandaging told her she'd received proper care. The blankets smelled like cheap fabric softener, but they were clean and warm. "Good morning," came a gentle voice from the kitchen. Eleanor turned to see Maria preparing what looked like their last box of oatmeal. Steam rose from a small pot and cinnamon filled the air. "How are you feeling, sweetheart?" Maria asked with a warm smile. "Much better, thanks to you." Eleanor's voice was steady now. "Where's the young man who brought me here?" "Darius is at school. He wanted to stay home to check on you, but education comes first." "School." The boy who'd saved her life was still in high school, probably sitting in class instead of receiving the recognition he deserved. Eleanor reached for her coat pocket and felt her leather wallet, genuine Italian leather that cost more than most monthly rents. Inside were crisp $100 bills. "Please," she said, pulling out 200s. "You and your son saved my life. Let me pay for what he lost helping me." Maria's hands flew up in refusal. "Oh no, Senora, we can't accept that. But he lost money helping me. And you used your medical supplies." "We didn't help you for money," Maria said firmly but kindly. "We helped because it was right. Any mother would want someone to help her child if they were lost." Eleanor felt tears prick her eyes. When was the last time someone had refused her money? When had someone helped without expecting anything? Her phone buzzed, an expensive smartphone with a custom case. Maria noticed the expensive device but said nothing. "Yes?" Eleanor answered, her voice changing, sharper, more authoritative. "Mrs. Whitfield, thank God," came a frantic voice. "The security team has been searching everywhere. Where are you?" Eleanor glanced at Maria, who pretended not to listen while stirring oatmeal. "I'm safe," Eleanor said quietly. "I'm with wonderful people. The meeting will wait. But the board is expecting. Tell them I'm fine." She hung up quickly. Maria brought her oatmeal in their nicest bowl, chipped ceramic from a thrift store, with a plastic spoon. "You don't have to," Eleanor began. "Eat," Maria said with practiced authority. "You need strength." As Eleanor ate the simple breakfast, she watched Maria move efficiently around the tiny kitchen. Every motion spoke of someone used to making little go far. The apartment told its story, furniture held together with tape, a space heater working overtime, school textbooks stacked beside engineering magazines. Someone here had big dreams despite small means. Eleanor reached into her coat and pulled out a business card, heavy stock paper, gold-embossed lettering. "Promise me something," she said as Maria collected the empty bowl. "If you or your son ever need anything at all, call this number." Maria looked at the card. Whitfield Industries with an elegant logo. "We'll keep it," Maria said politely. "But, Senora, we helped because you needed help, not because we wanted something." Eleanor's phone rang again. Through the window, a black sedan was pulling up. "My ride is here," she said, though her voice suggested reluctance to leave. As Maria helped her to the door, Eleanor turned back. "Your son is special. Don't let the world convince him otherwise." Maria smiled. "He's always been my miracle." Eleanor paused at the door, looking back at the tiny apartment where she'd received more genuine care than in any luxury hospital. "Sometimes," she said quietly, "the people with the least give the most." As Eleanor's car pulled away, Darius had no idea that across town, a desperate search was finally coming to an end. Darius returned from school that afternoon to find his mom sitting at their small kitchen table, staring at a business card. "How's the lady?" he asked, dropping his backpack by the door. "Eleanor, she's much better, mijo. Her family picked her up this morning." Maria held up the card. "She left this for us." Darius examined the heavy cardstock. The logo was embossed in gold, and the paper felt expensive between his fingers. Whitfield Industries. He'd never heard of them, but everything about the card screamed money and power. "She said to call if we ever needed anything," Maria continued. "Sweet woman, but you know how rich people are. They say things they don't mean." Darius nodded, but something nagged at him. Eleanor hadn't seemed like someone who said things she didn't mean. His mom started coughing again, the same deep, rattling cough that had worsened over the past 4 days. Without the medicine, her bronchitis was getting worse. "Mom, we need to get you to a doctor." "Can't afford it, mijo. I'll be fine." But her voice was getting weaker, and dark circles shadowed her eyes. Meanwhile, 15 miles away in downtown Chicago, the executive offices of Whitfield Industries hummed with activity that had nothing to do with business. Jonathan Whitfield stood in his corner office, staring out at the city skyline, his phone pressed to his ear. "Sir, we've confirmed she's safe," his head of security reported. The GPS tracker in her phone shows she spent the night at a residential address on the south side. "The south side?" Jonathan's voice was sharp with concern. "What was she doing there?" "Unknown, sir. She's not answering detailed questions about last night. Says she was helped by good people and won't elaborate." Jonathan closed his eyes. His mother's Alzheimer's episodes were becoming more frequent, more dangerous. Last night could have ended very differently. "Sir?" The security chief's voice brought him back. "Should we investigate the address? Run background checks on the residents?" "Not yet," Jonathan said slowly. "If my mother says they helped her, then we owe them a debt. But keep monitoring. I want to know if anything changes." Back in the South Side apartment, Darius sat beside his mom's bed as she tried to sleep between coughing fits. He pulled out the business card again, turning it over in his hands. On the back, someone had written in elegant handwriting, "For the angel who saved me, E.W." Darius looked at his mom's medication bottles, all empty now. Her inhaler sat on the nightstand, but even that was running low. Tomorrow was rent day. They had exactly $43 to their name. He studied the card one more time, then tucked it into his wallet. "Rich people say things they don't mean," his mom had said. But what if this time was different? What if Eleanor had meant every word? When Darius finally dialed that number, he had no idea he was about to discover Eleanor's incredible secret. 2 days later, Maria collapsed. Darius found her on the kitchen floor when he came home from school, gasping for air like a fish out of water. Her lips had turned blue and her fingernails were gray, signs he'd learned meant her body wasn't getting enough oxygen. "Mom!" He dropped to his knees beside her, his hands shaking as he checked her pulse, fast and irregular. Her skin was burning with fever, but she was shivering uncontrollably. The bronchitis had turned into pneumonia. "Can't breathe," she whispered between gasps. Darius reached for his phone to call 911, then stopped. They had no insurance. An ambulance ride alone would cost $800. Emergency room treatment could bankrupt them completely. But if he didn't call, his mom might die. His hands trembling, he pulled Eleanor's business card from his wallet. The elegant logo seemed to mock him. What could some rich lady's company do for a family like his? But he was out of options. The phone rang once, twice. "Whitfield Industries, executive offices? How may I direct your call?" The receptionist's voice was professional, polished. Darius almost hung up. This was stupid. Eleanor probably didn't even remember him. I'm looking for Eleanor," he stammered. "An elderly lady. She said to call. Please hold." The line went quiet except for classical music. Darius knelt beside his mom, one hand on her forehead, the other clutching the phone. Then a man's voice came on the line, urgent, desperate. "Do you know where my mother is? Is she safe?" Darius blinked. "Your mother? Eleanor Whitfield. You called our main line asking for her. Where did you find her? When did you see her last?" She's your mother?" Darius's mind reeled. "I found her 2 nights ago. In the storm. She was hurt and, thank God." The relief in the man's voice was overwhelming. "She's been missing for over 36 hours. We had every security team in the city looking for her. Is she hurt? Where is she now?" "Missing?" Darius struggled to process this. "But she went home yesterday morning. A car picked her up. That was us. But she won't tell us where she was or who helped her. She just keeps saying good people and the boy who saved me. That's you, isn't it?" Darius felt the world tilting. I don't understand. Who are you?" "Jonathan Whitfield, CEO of Whitfield Industries. Eleanor is my mother." The name hit Darius like a physical blow. He'd heard of Whitfield Industries. Everyone in Chicago had. They owned half the skyscrapers downtown, luxury hotels, and shopping centers. The company was worth billions. "She has early-stage Alzheimer's," Jonathan continued, his voice thick with emotion. "Sometimes she gets confused, wanders off. We have caregivers, security, GPS tracking, but she's independent, stubborn. 2 nights ago, she slipped away from her caregiver during an evening walk." Darius thought about Eleanor's confusion, her mumbled words about meetings and Jonathan. It hadn't been random rambling. She'd been trying to remember her real life. "The storm hit while she was lost," Jonathan went on. "She could have died out there. Hypothermia. Her injuries, if you hadn't found her." "I just did what anyone would do," Darius whispered. "No." Jonathan's voice was firm. "Our security footage shows dozens of people walking past her. You're the only one who stopped, the only one who cared enough to help." Darius looked down at his mom, still struggling to breathe. The conversation felt surreal, like he was listening to someone else's life. "Sir," he said suddenly, "I need help. My mom is really sick and I don't know what to do." "What kind of help?" "She has pneumonia. She can't breathe. We don't have insurance and I can't afford—" "What's your address?" Darius gave him the information, still not believing this was happening. "Don't move. I'm sending a private medical team immediately." "And Darius?" "Yes, sir." "Thank you for saving my mother's life. Now let me help save yours." 20 minutes later, Darius heard vehicles pulling up outside. Through his window, he saw 2 black SUVs and a white van with medical equipment. A team of paramedics rushed up the stairs, led by a man in an expensive suit who could only be Jonathan Whitfield. He was tall, silver-haired, with the kind of presence that commanded attention. But his eyes were kind, and when he saw Maria struggling to breathe on the couch, his expression filled with genuine concern. "Ma'am, I'm Jonathan. These are the best emergency medical technicians in Chicago. They're going to take excellent care of you." The medics worked with efficiency that took Darius's breath away. Within minutes, they had Maria on oxygen, IV fluids running, and medication flowing into her system to fight the infection. "She'll be fine," the lead medic assured Darius. "We're taking her to Northwestern Memorial. Private room, full treatment. Everything's already arranged." As they loaded Maria onto a stretcher, Jonathan pulled Darius aside. "She's going to get the best care available. Money is not a concern." "I can't pay for this," Darius said, overwhelmed. "You already paid," Jonathan replied. "You saved my mother when everyone else walked away. You took her into your home, cared for her with your own family's resources. You gave up your own bed, your own food, your own coat in a blizzard." Darius shook his head. That's what you do for people." Jonathan studied him for a long moment. "No, son, that's what you do. Most people don't. Most people see someone different from them, someone they don't recognize, and they keep walking." As the ambulance pulled away with his mom, Darius felt like he was living in a dream. "Darius," Jonathan said, "we need to talk. What you did for my mother. It can't go unrewarded. She means everything to me. And now, so do you." What Jonathan offered next was so incredible that Darius thought it was some kind of joke. At Northwestern Memorial Hospital, Maria was breathing normally for the first time in a week. The private room was larger than their entire apartment, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan. Machines monitored her vitals, while IV antibiotics fought the infection that could have killed her. Darius sat beside her bed, still processing everything that had happened. 6 hours ago, his mom was dying on their kitchen floor. Now she was receiving care that would normally cost tens of thousands of dollars. "How are you feeling, Mom?" "Like I can breathe again, mijo." Maria's voice was weak but clear. "This man, this Jonathan, he says you saved his mother." Before Darius could answer, there was a soft knock on the door. Jonathan entered, carrying 2 cups of coffee and what looked like a thick folder. "Mrs. Johnson, you look much better." He handed Darius a coffee, real coffee, not the instant stuff they used at home. "The doctors say you'll make a full recovery." "Senor Whitfield," Maria began, "we can't afford—" "Please." Jonathan held up his hand gently. "Your son saved my mother's life. This is the least I can do." He pulled up a chair. "But actually, I'd like to discuss something much bigger with both of you." He opened the folder and spread several documents across the bedside table. Darius saw letterheads from Northwestern University, scholarship applications, and what looked like legal contracts. "Darius, tell me about your dreams. What do you want to do with your life?" The question caught Darius off guard. Adults didn't usually ask him about dreams. They asked about survival. I want to be an engineer," he said hesitantly. "I like figuring out how things work, solving problems. But college isn't really—" "Why not? We can't afford it. Even community college costs more than we make." Jonathan nodded thoughtfully. "What if money wasn't an issue? What if you could attend any university in the country?" Darius felt his heart speed up, but he forced himself to stay realistic. "That's not how the world works for people like us, sir." "It is now." Jonathan pulled out a document with Northwestern University's seal at the top. "Full scholarship to Northwestern's engineering program. Tuition, books, room and board, everything covered for 4 years." Darius stared at the paper. "I don't understand." "There's more." Jonathan laid out additional documents. $2,000 per month stipend for living expenses. Guaranteed internships at Whitfield Industries every summer. And when you graduate, a full-time position with our engineering team. Maria gasped. Senor, that's too much. We can't accept. Mrs. Johnson, with respect, this isn't charity. This is an investment. Jonathan's voice grew serious. Do you know what your son did 2 nights ago? He didn't just save an elderly woman, he saved the mother of a man who spent his entire adult life looking for young people exactly like Darius. He pulled out his phone and showed them photos, groundbreaking ceremonies, ribbon cuttings, news articles about Whitfield Industries' community development projects. For 20 years, I've been trying to find brilliant minds from overlooked communities, kids who understand real problems because they've lived them, kids who have the character to succeed and the heart to lift others up. Darius shook his head. But I'm nobody special. I just deliver food and try to help my mom. You're exactly who I've been looking for. Jonathan leaned forward. In 36 hours, you encountered a life or death situation and made the hardest choice imaginable. You sacrificed your own family's welfare to save a complete stranger. You brought her to your home, shared your resources, showed more kindness than people with 1,000 times your wealth. He pointed to another document. But here's what really convinced me. I had my team research your background. You tutor struggling students for free. You volunteer at the community center. You share your lunch with homeless veterans. You've been quietly helping others for years, even when you barely had enough for yourself. Maria's eyes filled with tears. He's always been that way, even as a little boy. That's what makes this not charity, but destiny, Jonathan continued. I need someone who understands both the technical and human sides of engineering. Someone who can design solutions for communities like yours because they know what those communities need. He spread out architectural plans and engineering schematics. These are affordable housing projects, community solar installations, water purification systems for underserved areas. This is what Whitfield Industries' future looks like, and I need someone like you to lead it. Darius studied the plans, his engineering mind immediately engaged. This solar panel configuration could be optimized for cost efficiency, he said without thinking. And the water system, you could reduce maintenance costs by 30% with a different filtration approach. Jonathan smiled. See? You're already thinking like the engineer you're meant to become. But Darius still couldn't believe it was real. Why me? You could find hundreds of engineering students who are smarter, more qualified. Intelligence can be taught. Characters can't. Jonathan's voice grew emotional. My mother called you the angel who saved her. She has Alzheimer's, but she remembers you perfectly. She keeps asking when she can see her boy Darius again. He pulled out one final document. $25,000 signing bonus, specifically earmarked for your family's immediate needs. New apartment in a safe neighborhood. Health insurance that covers everything, including your mother's ongoing care. Maria was crying now. Mijo, this is a miracle. But Darius felt overwhelmed, almost frightened by the magnitude of what was being offered. I don't know if I can live up to this, he whispered. Jonathan stood and put his hand on Darius's shoulder. Son, you already have. You proved your character when no one was watching, when there was no reward expected. Everything else, the engineering skills, the business knowledge, that's just training. He gathered the documents and placed them in front of Darius. These papers can change your life, your family's life, and eventually thousands of other lives. All you have to do is sign. 6 months later, the transformation was so incredible that even their old neighbors couldn't believe their eyes. The apartment building on 47th Street buzzed with excitement as a sleek black car pulled up to the curb. Out stepped Darius Johnson, but he looked nothing like the scrawny delivery boy who used to struggle up these same stairs with his broken bicycle. He wore a Northwestern University jacket over a crisp white shirt, carried a leather messenger bag instead of a torn backpack, and moved with the confidence of someone who belonged in engineering labs and corporate boardrooms. But when Mrs. Peterson from 3B called out Darius, he still had the same warm smile. Mrs. Peterson, how are you feeling? He bounded up the steps to hug their elderly neighbor, the same woman he used to share his school lunch with. Mijo, look at you! Your mama must be so proud! She was. Maria Johnson stood in the doorway of their old apartment, which they kept to help transition other families in need, beaming with pride as her son visited the community center where it all began. Maria had transformed too. As the new community liaison director for the Whitfield Foundation, she wore professional clothes instead of hospital scrubs, carried a tablet instead of cleaning supplies, and had become the bridge between corporate resources and neighborhood needs. "Ready for the presentation?" she asked Darius in Spanish, their private language of family connection that no amount of success could change. "Nervous," he admitted. "Do you think the community will like what we've designed? They're going to love it, because you listen to what they actually need." Inside the community center, 40 families crowded into the main room. These were the people Darius had grown up with: single mothers working double shifts, elderly residents on fixed incomes, kids who shared his old dreams of escaping poverty through education. Jonathan Whitfield stood at the back, watching his protege with undisguised pride. In 6 months, Darius had exceeded every expectation. He was excelling in his engineering courses at Northwestern, maintaining a 3.9 GPA while working 15 hours a week at Whitfield Industries as a junior project coordinator. But more importantly, he'd never forgotten where he came from. "Good evening, everyone," Darius began, his voice carrying the authority of someone who'd learned to speak in corporate boardrooms but kept the heart of his community. "6 months ago, I was delivering food on a bicycle, living paycheck to paycheck like many of you. Today, I'm here to announce something that's going to change our neighborhood forever." He clicked to the first slide of his presentation: architectural renderings of a stunning community complex. The Eleanor Whitfield Community Innovation Center. Free childcare for working parents, computer labs with high-speed internet, job training programs in partnership with local businesses, and most importantly, a scholarship program for students who show character, not just grades. The room erupted in excited murmurs. Mrs. Rodriguez raised her hand. "How much will this cost families?" "Nothing," Darius said. "Completely free. Funded by the Whitfield Foundation and designed by people who understand our community because we are this community." He clicked to the next slide: solar panel installations covering the community center's roof. "We're also implementing renewable energy systems that will cut this building's electricity costs by 70%. The money saved goes directly into expanding programs." Maria stepped forward. "And we're starting with scholarships for 12 students this year, kids who've shown kindness and leadership regardless of their test scores or family income." She gestured to a young girl in the front row, Sophia Martinez, whose mother worked 3 jobs. "Sophia tutors younger kids in math even though her own grades aren't perfect. That's the kind of character we're looking for." The presentation continued with more reveals: partnerships with local businesses for internships, a community garden that would provide fresh produce, and a makerspace where kids could learn engineering and technology skills. But the most emotional moment came when Eleanor Whitfield herself entered the room, moving slowly but determinedly with her walker. Despite her Alzheimer's progression, she insisted on attending every major Whitfield Foundation event. Today was no exception. "Where's my boy?" she asked, her eyes scanning the room until they found Darius. The entire room fell silent as this elegant elderly woman made her way to the front. Darius met her halfway, gently taking her arm. "Hello, Mrs. Eleanor." "There he is," she said, her voice carrying clearly despite her frail appearance. "The angel who saved my life." She turned to address the crowd, and for a moment, her confusion lifted completely. "This young man," she said, "didn't just save me from a snowstorm. He saved my faith in humanity. He reminded me that kindness still exists in this world." She paused, looking directly at the families gathered before her. "The foundation bearing my name will invest $2 million annually in this community. Not because we feel sorry for you, but because you produced someone like Darius. If this neighborhood can create one young man with such character, imagine what it can do with proper resources." Jonathan stepped forward, barely containing his emotion. "The Eleanor Whitfield Community Innovation Center breaks ground next month, but this is just the beginning. We're expanding this model to 12 communities across Chicago, each one identified and designed by young people like Darius who understand what their neighborhoods really need." As applause filled the room, Darius looked around at the faces of people who'd watched him grow up. The same people who'd seen him deliver food in blizzards, share his lunch with hungry classmates, and care for his sick mother without complaint. Now they were seeing him transform their entire community. But the most beautiful part of this story happened exactly 1 year after that cold night. December 15th, another Chicago blizzard. Darius Johnson, now a college freshman, walked through the same streets where everything had changed 12 months ago. He still rode a bicycle, not because he had to, but because he chose to. This one was new, but he kept his old delivery job one night a week. "Never forget where you came from," he'd told Jonathan. Tonight, he was volunteering at the Eleanor Whitfield Community Center, distributing warm meals during the storm. That's when he saw him. An elderly black veteran named Robert huddled against the same building where he'd found Eleanor. Military jacket torn, eyes unfocused with hypothermic confusion. "Sir, are you okay?" Darius knelt beside him. "Cold," Robert whispered. "So cold. Lost my way." Without hesitation, Darius took off his northwestern jacket and wrapped it around Robert's shoulders. The same instant decision, the same willing sacrifice. "I'm getting you somewhere warm." Across the street, Eleanor Whitfield watched from her car. Despite her Alzheimer's progression, she insisted on visiting their special place during every storm. Certain memories remained crystal clear. She watched Darius guide Robert toward the community center with the same gentle urgency he'd shown her. "That's him," she whispered to Jonathan. "That's my angel. He learned the lesson, Mom. He was born knowing it." Eleanor replied with perfect clarity. "We just gave him the tools." 2 hours later, Robert was warm, fed, and enrolled in the Veteran Assistance Program. He'd been an Army engineer. Now he'd become Darius's weekend mentor. The next morning, Jonathan texted, "Saw what you did. Eleanor wants to establish the Robert Williams Veterans Engineering Scholarship. Interested in helping design it?" Darius smiled. "When do we start?" That afternoon at the community center, Eleanor sat in her wheelchair, confusion mixing with flashes of understanding. When Darius knelt beside her, her eyes focused completely. "Promise me something," she said, gripping his hand. "Anything, Mrs. Eleanor. Promise you'll always help the forgotten ones, the people everyone else walks past." "I promise," Darius said. "Always." Eleanor smiled, the brilliant philanthropist shining through. "Then my work here is done." 6 months later, Eleanor passed peacefully in her sleep. She left Darius as primary heir to her foundation's mission with a handwritten note. "To the boy who taught an old woman that angels still walk among us." The cycle of kindness continued, one forgotten soul at a time. Darius's story proves that the smallest acts of kindness can create the biggest changes. One freezing night, one choice to help a stranger transformed not just 2 lives, but an entire community. Think about it. Darius had every reason to keep walking. He needed that money desperately. His mom was sick, the storm was getting worse, but he stopped anyway because that's who he was. And because of that choice, dozens of families now have scholarships. Veterans have housing. A whole neighborhood has hope. Here's what I want you to ask yourself today. Who is the Eleanor in your life? Who needs help that everyone else is ignoring? What would you do if that confused person on the street was your grandmother? Remember, the person you help might change your life in ways you never imagined. Sometimes the biggest risk isn't helping a stranger. It's walking past someone who could transform your future. Share this story with someone who believes kindness matters, like if you'd stop to help. Subscribe to Black Takes Stories for more proof that good deeds create real miracles. One act of kindness, infinite possibilities.